I just finished doing runs with all of the Commander's Pokemon. I finished Purugly, Skuntank, and Toxicroak. I wanted to move on to doing another series, which is all the Pokemon that evolve in Generation 4 that are originally from Generation 1. I'm thinking Electivire, Magmortar, that kind of thing. I will have to play Rhyperior, even though I don't like that Pokemon. Anyway, I think I would have missed something if I didn't do Cyrus's ace. But it isn't really clear which Pokemon is his ace, because in the first two battles, he finishes with his Murkrow and then his Honchkrow, and in the final battle, he has Weavile, which originally is his lead. That said, the Murkrow never really feels like the ace, because in the second battle, the most intimidating Pokemon is definitely the Crobat. Eventually, I'm gonna have to play all these Pokemon anyway, so we're just gonna go one by one through Cyrus's Pokemon. I'm starting with Crobat, then we're gonna do Honchkrow, and finally we'll finish with Weavile. So today, I'm beating Pokemon Platinum using only the Crobat-line, and yes, I'm starting as a Zubat. It is going to be a rough beginning to this run. For base stats, we start out with 40 HP, 45 attack, 35 defense, 55 speed, 30 special attack, and 40 special defense. The Zubat line has a medium fast growth rate, which is not going to level up quickly in the early game. As a poison flying type, we would hope that we would have same type attack bonus moves, but we don't. Zubat starts with Leech Life and Supersonic, two terrible moves, and we get to see just how bad they are in the first battle against the rival. This is literally the first battle of the game. Of course, the rival's choosing Piplup. Eventually, it'll be a Steel type, which we don't have good coverage for. My strategy here is to use Supersonic so that the Piplup will damage itself, because that is the best way for Zubat to deal damage. Leech Life just does so little. I am able to beat the rival and earn the experience from this battle, which slightly speeds up my early game progress. Now, initially I thought that fighting wild Pokemon with Leech Life and leveling up as soon as possible would be the best option. I'm not looking for level 9 because Astonish is a ghost type move and it's very useless in the early game where there are so many normal types. Instead, I want to get to level 13 as soon as possible to get access to Bite. Now, unlike in Generation 1 to 3, this move is not special, it's now physical, which doesn't really work in Zubat's favor, even though it is a physical attacker. I would prefer to have special damage against Rourke's rock types. Beyond Bite at level 13, Zubat gets Wing Attack at 17, at least it has 60 base power ever since Generation 2. At level 21, I get Confuse Ray, and then at level 22, it's going to evolve into Golbat. I won't cover the rest of the moveset now, we'll just cover that once it evolves. Now, while I did train in the early game a little bit with Leech Life, this is not going to be the best move for Zubat to complete its training with. Instead, once Professor Rowan gives me the TM for Return, this is going to be Zubat's go-to move. Now, this evolutionary line does function with Friendship, but it doesn't start with a higher base Friendship. It's only 70 like most Pokemon. Because of that, when I teach Return, its effective power is only 31, which is still 50% higher than Leech Life's base 20, so it is an upgrade. And once Zubat reaches level 9, it learns Astonish, but this move is still weaker than Return, which is slowly getting more powerful as the game progresses. Zubat's ability is one that I always forget when I'm playing against it. I always say that I'm gonna like flinch a Dragonite or a Zubat or something like that, and then people catch me in the comments, they're like, don't they have inner focus? They can't be flinched. Yeah, fair enough. I should be reading the abilities on the right hand side of the screen and knowing that I can't flinch these Pokemon. The ability won't change as Zubat evolves, so we're impervious to flinches throughout this entire playthrough. But what we are not impervious to right now is bad accuracy. Against this Piplup, in the second battle against the rival, I use Supersonic over and over again, and it just keeps missing. 55% accuracy is really terrible. I actually started to spiral and doubt myself, wondering if somehow the Piplup had an ability or a move that was preventing Supersonic from working. No, I'm just getting unlucky in this case. So unlucky that by the time Supersonic finally works, Zubat has just taken too much damage and this fight ends up as a reset. That's the first one for this playthrough. Luckily in the next battle, I don't have as many problems with Supersonic. Piplup is hitting itself, doing a lot of damage, and then I can use Return to knock it out. Along the next route, I fight all of the trainers, even the guy who has the Kricketot with Bide. In this case, I'm doing it without Bite or Wing Attack, which does make it a little bit scary. Luckily, Zubat's doing enough damage to two-shot, so it takes no damage from Bide. As I continue my training, Zubat learns Bite. I teach it in the place of Astonish. I don't really like using Ghost-type moves if I can avoid them, just because normal types are immune to their damage. I finish off literally every available NPC, which brings me into the gym to fight this guy and his Geodude to see how Zubat's going to do. The answer is not particularly well. I'm able to knock this one out, but I don't like my chances against Rourke. I fought the other trainer in the gym who does have an Onix. Zubat is able to emerge victorious here, and that brings it to level 50. 15, but I don't think this is enough for the first gym leader. I continue training on wild Pokemon, get to 17 where I can learn Wing Attack, which I put in the place of Supersonic. Inflicting Confusion could have been a way to defeat Rourke at a lower level, but I don't want to have to roll the dice on Supersonic anymore. I'm just going to train to the point that Zubat can muscle its way through his rock types. At level 18, over a damage rounding threshold, I decided to try my luck for the first time. Geodude's up first. I'm going to be using Bite here. It can do the most damage, plus it can inflict a flinch. However, even with that secondary effect, which is usually very good with a fast Pokemon, I'm just not doing enough damage. Rock Throw from the Geodude is doing almost half to Zubat, so in only 3 hits, his lead will knock me out. Plus, I can't do more than a quarter to the Onix, so it's going to take at least 5 turns to knock out at the current level. Zubat's not going to be able to win at level 18. I trained to 20, and things haven't really changed. Even though I have more damage, I can 3-shot the Geodude now, but the Onix gets me and I don't make it to the Cranidos, so I'm gonna train more. At 21, Zubat gets Confuse Ray, and this definitely gives it an option against Rourke, which would give it a win eventually with enough luck. But I decided to be more consistent than that. I train 1 more level to 22 and evolve into Golbat. For base stats, the middle evolution has 75 HP, 80 attack, 70 defense, 90 speed, 65 special attack, and 75 special defense. This is a major upgrade in stats, and you can really see that here as I fight Rourke again. I'm 2-shotting the Geodude now. The Onix that's next, I confuse with Confuse Ray. It hits itself, but I didn't even need to do that. I should have just 3-shot using Bite. I take a little bit of damage from Rock Throw, but Onix is incompetent at attacking, as we all know. Its attack stat in this battle is only 14. Also, the Zubat-line is strangely defensive. I always forget just how bulky this Pokemon is. I know it's not the most bulky Pokemon out there, but it can take a hit pretty well. I have green health by the time I move on to the Cranidos, which is by far his most offensive Pokemon. But that comes at a disadvantage because my attack with Bite does so much damage. It brings it to orange health. Rourke's Retaliatory Headbutt basically fizzles, so that's that. Golbat easily defeats the first gym leader. Evolution turns out here to be the easy solution. But for the next portion of the game, it is not going to be a solution, because to evolve Golbat into Crobat, I'm going to need to get to 220 Friendship. Currently, as I leave the gym, Golbat has 151, which does increment whenever I take a certain number of steps, so it goes up to 152 as I leave the door of the gym. Just to quickly go over the Friendship stat, it increases when certain things happen. So for example, every time your Pokemon levels up, if it is between 0 and 99 Friendship, it will gain 5 Friendship. This goes down between 100 and 199 Friendship to only 3 points, and then only 2 points above 200, all the way to the max 255. There are other ways to increase Friendship, so for example, if I teach my Pokemon a TM or an HM, it will increase its Friendship by 1 point, but that isn't very significant. Plus, this entire evolutionary line doesn't have access to the widest range of TMs and HMs. To draw your attention to some notable ones that Golbat can learn: Giga Drain, Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, Aerial Ace, Secret Power Thief, Steel Wing, Pluck, and U-Turn. I have access to absolutely none of those TMs right now, so we're just going to have to keep leveling up to get progress towards Crobat. The Valley Windworks is next, where I have to face Commander Mars. This overall is a really easy fight for Golbat. Wing Attack one-shots Zubat, then her Purugly comes in. I can't flinch from Fake Out, which it loves to use first turn, and Wing Attack is doing more than half. Even after it consumes its berry, I'm still able to 2-shot. Okay, time for Eterna Forest. In here, there's an annoying person with a Pachirisu. Luckily, she doesn't cause any problems for Golbat. At the end of the forest, when Cheryl departs, she gives me the Soothe Bell, which I can equip to Golbat. Now, every time it gains Friendship, the points will be increased by 50%. I'm going to give this item to Golbat to hold, and I'm just going to leave it there until we evolve into Crobat. This is an item that helps in 2 ways. It's both going to increase Return's power more quickly, and it's also going to help me evolve into Crobat as soon as I can in this run, which will hopefully speed up the final playthrough time that I get. I'm not really that confident using Crobat in the late game. We have to deal with Byron, a Steel-type specialist that we basically have no moves that are good against, and then we'll have to take on Bertha at the very end of the game. She's got some rock types that I'm a little bit worried about. Plus, the poison type is not really that good against Lucian. But in terms of type effectiveness right now, I don't have anything to worry about because Gardenia is up next. Turtwig's first. This thing is a nuisance only if it sets up with Reflect, but it's not going to because Wing Attack does enough damage to one-shot. By the way, I have learned Air Cutter by this point just so that I have access to a special move in case I don't want to be using a physical move. If it had set up with Reflect, then I would have an alternative option. But I can just continue spamming Wing Attack here, and I one-shot the Cherrim as well as the final Roserade. This was a really easy and straightforward gym battle. Commander Jupiter's next. This one isn't as easy as Commander Mars was. Golbat doesn't have the damage to two-shot the Skuntank, but that's okay. Its Night Slashes aren't doing very much damage, so over 3 turns I knock out her ace. Then, just outside of the old chateau, I pick up the Insect Plate. By the way, Crobat can learn X-Scissor, and I think we might use that move later into the game, so I'm just going to grab this now to be safe. I don't want to backtrack here later and waste a bunch of time in the case I need it. Inside the old chateau, I get to see a ghost. I pick up the rare candy, the Dread Plate to increase Bite's damage against Fantina, and then get the TM for Substitute. Although, I don't know if Golbat's going to need it, so I won't teach it right now. I explore Wayward Cave to grab the rare candy. I'm picking up all of these in this playthrough. I think Crobat's going to need a quite high level to beat the game. Then, as I head towards Hearthome City, this hiker catches me. I was not expecting that I would have to narrate this fight because he's only got 2 Pokemon. They're not very good. However, the first Geodude ends up doing tons of damage after surviving an Air Cutter. It goes for self-destruct and leaves Golbat on 10 hit points by the time Nose Pass comes in. Now, there is no way that I'm going to one-shot this defensive Pokemon, so I go for Bite hoping for a flinch, but I don't get it. However, Nose Pass just goes for Harden and gives Golbat the knockout. Inside Hearthome City, I pick up the Shell Bell. This is an item that I have mixed feelings about, and I know some of you do in the comments as well. Some of you say that it should be used more frequently to gain back health during battles, and others say that it gains back too little health to be functionally usable in a solo challenge. I sit somewhere on the fence between these two. I think it's sometimes useful, but I think in the majority of instances it's just not very good. However, in the absence of another good held item, I think it's a great substitute. I'll continue having Golbat hold the Soothe Bell for now, but once it evolves into Crobat, I think the Shell Bell is going to make more sense. And I mean I'm going to keep holding the Soothe Bell for now, because I could equip the Dread Plate for more damage against Fantina, and I could teach Substitute. Both things would make the battle easier. However, I think that Golbat's just going to be able to win here with Bite right away. Let's try it out without switching anything up. Okay, what's her first Pokemon? It's Dusclops, right? Definitely a Dusclops. Anyways, Bite one-shots it, which is great. Then Miss Magius comes out next. It has Psybeam, which was a little bit worried about, but instead it uses Confuse Ray, and Golbat doesn't hit itself, so I two-shot her ace. All that's left is Haunter, and while it does have one Psychic-type move, it's just Hypnosis, which puts Golbat to sleep. I take some damage from Shadow Claw and Sucker Punch, but eventually Golbat wakes up, strikes back with Bite, and one-shots her final team member. Alright, so no Dread Plate. I gained a little bit extra friendship here, and after that battle, Golbat is sitting at 203. Time for the rival battle. This is where things start getting annoying because the Staravia has Intimidate. I'm using Wing Attack, it's doing half, but I can also use Air Cutter here since my attack stat is lower than my special attack stat now. He sends in Ponyta second, which I also two-shot, and then Prinplup comes out. It does not have an Ice type move, so I can three-shot using Air Cutter, and I'm not taking that much damage from Bubble Beam. It's really nice that the rivals team isn't problematic here for Golbat. A lot of Pokemon need to evolve into their final stage to take a victory here, since usually the rival's starter is causing significant problems by this point in the run. Okay, Editor Scott here. Just before Solaceon Town is the Lost Tower, and just outside of this location, you can pick up the Steel Wing TM, which would have been helpful for type effectiveness later into the run, especially against Byron, but I forgot that this TM exists, so I'm not going to be using it in this solo challenge. If you feel like it's an omission, yes it is. I didn't know that it existed, I didn't know that it was right here. In future runs with flying types, I'll remember it. Heading north past Solaceon Town, I'm going to talk to this NPC. She gives you the Roost TM, and I know that this move is going to be useful at some point during this run. For now, to have increased moveset flexibility, I'm not going to teach it though. I think it's time to talk about one of Golbat's biggest problems in this playthrough, and that is Steel-type Pokemon. Ruin Maniac Calvin has a Bronzor and a Shieldon. You'll all know that I hate the Bronzor line. They take almost no damage from any Pokemon, and they're always really frustrating to go up against. That hate is only going to be made deeper in this run, since all of the Bronzor are also super effective against Golbat. I have Bite, which is neutral against it, and I'm able to 3-shot, which is pretty good. However, that leads to Shieldon, which is a Rock Steel type, and all of my moves are absolutely terrible here. Wing Attack has an effective power of 22, Return 20, Bite 30, and Air Cutter 20. I'm using Air Cutter because it's special and Shieldon has higher physical defense. I'm not really sure what the best option is here. In the end, this is just going to take a long time, and it makes me very worried for Byron's eventual Bastiodon. As I make my way closer and closer to Veilstone City, we're also getting closer and closer to 220 Friendship. Before that though, I have to beat Ace Trainer Dennis. He's usually scary, but in this run, Golbat actually dispatches him fairly easily, surviving the aftermath from Drifblim. Evolution is just around the corner. Inside the gym, my Friendship is getting very close. However, I'm just barely not going to level up another time before Maylene, so it looks like one more gym leader is going to be battled as a Golbat. She leads with Meditite, obviously Wing Attack one-shots, really easy start to the battle. Machoke's next, it's more defensive, so it survives a single hit, then just misses Rock Tomb and I knock it out for free. Now, Lucario is going to take neutral damage, but Wing Attack still has an effective power of 90, and it's doing a lot, since Lucario doesn't actually have a high defense stat, which always blows my mind since it is a Steel type. The best move that it has against us is Metal Claw, which is obviously not doing very much damage, and because of that, Maylene ends up being very easy. Golbat now has 223 Friendship. It loves me enough that it evolves into Crobat, its final form. This increase in base stats is a little bit more modest than the evolution from Zubat into Golbat. Crobat has 85 HP, 90 attack, 80 defense, 130 speed, so it's never going to move second, 70 special attack, and 80 special defense. I really like Crobat's back sprite. He's on a cool angle. It really reminds me of the Generation 2 back sprite. If you didn't already know, when I was a kid, I played the game with a Crobat. I absolutely loved that Pokemon, even though in Generation 2 it wasn't very good, because like in Generation 4, its move pool is just pretty limited. We did get access to X-Scissor over Golbat, which can't learn this move, and as soon as I win in this multi-battle, I do get access to the HM for Fly, which Crobat can learn. And in Generation 4, its base power was upgraded from 70 all the way to 90, which makes it a much more effective move. It is the most powerful flying type move that the Crobat can learn in this game. Some of you are going to be thinking about the competitive set, which utilizes Roost and Brave Bird together, but that is only a possibility through breeding. So in this solo challenge, I'm not going to get access to Brave Bird, which is unfortunate. On my way south towards Pastoria City, I'm going to begin fighting more optional trainers. I want to gain as many levels as possible with Crobat throughout the next portion of the game when experience yields are starting to get better. One strategy to minimize your time doing a solo challenge is to fight trainers as late as is possible to get the level you need to beat the final trainers of the game. In this case with Crobat, I think the people I'm worried about are the ones I've already mentioned. Byron, who's just around the corner, and then later on Bertha and Lucian. I don't want to go into those fights under-leveled, so training now makes sense, especially when Crasher Wake is just around the corner, and he's typically one of the more difficult leaders in all of Platinum. Crobat is going to get some upgrades though before I fight him. On this beach, I can pick up a Heart Scale, which I can use with the move reminder in just a second. Before that though, on the same beach, I'm going to smash this rock and pick up the TM for Aerial Ace. It's a very similar move with Wing Attack, having the additional effect of bypassing accuracy checks, and this will be useful on the Foggy route in just a bit. Inside of Pastoria City, I use the Heart Scale to talk to the move tutor and give Crobat access to Cross Poison. This is a move that it learns at level 1, and I wouldn't have had access to it even if I started with a Crobat, just because it's the first of 5 moves that Crobat has access to at level 1. For any of my Gen 1ers out there, it has a base power of 70, an accuracy of 100, and 20 PP. It's also got an increased critical hit ratio and a 10% chance to poison. So overall, it's a really good move. Plus it deals physical damage utilizing Crobat's higher offensive stat. I use it for the first time against the rival outside of Crasher Wake's gym. He is not that difficult here. I can two-shot his first 2 Pokemon. The Prinplup once again still takes 3 to knock out. It's getting close to knocking out Crobat. I'm in orange health by the time I knock it out and move on to his final Pokemon, Roserade, which is an easy one-hit. Okay, time to do some training inside the gym. I'm going to beat every optional trainer in here to level Crobat up as much as possible. To this point in the run, I have collected 7 rare candies. Conveniently, the experience from the gym brought Crobat to level 43, so I can use all of my candies now to boost it to 50 before Crash or Wake. But on the way, at level 45, Crobat gets access to Haze, which is typically a move I don't use in solo challenges. It's not really that good, especially in Generation 1 because it completely takes away your badge boosts, which is never a good scenario. But in this case, Haze can be very useful to reset stage modifiers, so I teach it in the place of Bite. I finish leveling up to 50, and then I'm ready for Crash or Wake. Here's how Haze is useful. Gyarados leads, and it has Intimidate. I can immediately go for Haze, reset my attack modifiers, and then I can use Cross Poison for maximum damage. It's able to two-shot the Gyarados, but one unfortunate thing occurs before that. Gyarados uses Waterfall and gets a critical hit, doing a ton of damage. Because of this, I am not in a great place for the remainder of the battle. Cross Poison isn't able to one-shot the Floatzel, meaning it uses Brine when I'm under half health. This doubles the power of the Water-type move. Crobat is left with 30 hit points by the time I knock out his ace. But Quagsire is next, and I'm not going to be able to one-shot it. Also, it knows Rock Tomb, so it's able to knock out Crobat, giving me 1 reset. Things go much better when the Gyarados just doesn't get a critical hit. I knock it out after resetting my stage modifiers, move on to the Floatzel. It misses Ice Fang, which is convenient, and then I take care of it. All that's left is Quagsire, and I easily two-shot, defeating Wake. Okay, time for Aerial Ace. I teach it in the place of Wing Attack, and now I have a solution to the foggy area of the map. It's always good when you can use this move or Shockwave to navigate this area, just because then the enemy has an accuracy debuff against your Pokemon, and you don't have to waste the time to pick up the Defog TM. Now, there are some trainers that I want to dodge, like this couple that's running around. I successfully navigate past them. One of their Pokemon is a Raichu, which I really don't want to fight. But then there's this spinner at the top of the hill. I did not predict his motion well enough, and as a result, he catches me, which is a huge problem. One of his Pokemon is Probopass. Really, one of my least favorite Pokemon of all time. It's a Rock Steel type just like Bastiodon, so it's kind of a little glimpse into what awaits us at Byron. In this case, its moveset is Thunder Wave, Rock Slide, Magnet Bomb, and Iron Defense. The last of which is really awful because it's going to set up its defenses, and then we have to attack into it using Air Slash, which is doubly resisted, and so of course it does almost nothing. I tried to battle this out and beat the Probopass, but it just doesn't work. In the end, when Crobat goes down, I decided to black out here because I didn't save prior to this trainer. I came back, tried to dodge him again, but he caught me for a second time. I thought, maybe I can do it. No, I'm not going to. It's just going to take way too long. So I reset quickly and then dodged him successfully the 3rd time. Time for Cyrus. This is the man who inspired this run because he has a Golbat during this fight. Sneasel's first, one-shot with Cross Poison. Golbat's next. Air Slash is able to two-shot it, and then Murkrow comes in, which is easily taken care of with another Cross Poison. It was at this point in the game that I did some errands. I backtracked to this route, which is just south of Salacion Town. I'm gonna surf around this little maze here to pick up the Giga Drain TM. It's gonna be critical late into the run. I also went south of Sandgem Town. This is a location that I very rarely come to because the only reason to come over here is to pick up the X-Scissor TM. On my way, I do fight some optional trainers. This is good because I want to level Crobat up anyway. Now, while the X-Scissor TM was the reason to come over here, and I'm not gonna end up using it during this playthrough, the training at least helps Crobat out a little bit because just around the corner, we're gonna have to fight Byron. And I still had no idea what I was going to do against him. But before that, we have to take on the rival in Canalave City. To prepare for this fight, I'm gonna upgrade my moveset by adding Roost in the place of Aerial Ace. I'm keeping Air Slash because I want special damage against the Pokemon inside of Byron's gym. Now, time for the rival. He leads with Staraptor. It's annoying, I don't have Haze anymore, so I can't replenish my attack stat after Intimidate. But I'm still able to two-shot. Rapidash is next. Cross Poison is able to take care of it in 2 hits as well, and Takedown did very little damage to Crobat. I'm quite over-leveled at this point, and that's what this fight really comes down to. I'm able to knock out the Heracross in 1 hit, and then I'm doing surprisingly good damage to the Empoleon. Plus, it doesn't have any Ice-type moves, so overall an easy fight. that's not what I was expecting. And the ease of progress actually continues. Black Belt Ricky's Steelix goes down in only 2 hits from Air Slash. I guess this just shows how little special defense Steelix really has. Ace Trainer Caesar's Scissor is no problem. Try saying that 5 times in a row. After that, I run into worker Gerardo. I tried pronouncing that well. Hopefully I did a good job. He has 2 Magnemites. These things are really annoying to finish. Each one of them takes 3 hits. But I can take my time here, using Roost to heal along the way. Okay, time for 3 Bronzor. Ace Trainer Brianna is annoying as always. Air Slash has to 3-hit all of them. At least Crobat has Roost. It's a slow battle, but I do make it through. Now, time for Byron. Okay, this battle is bad, but not for the reason that I was expecting. The lead Pokemon is Magneton, and I cannot do much damage to it. Return is my best choice here, and it's doing roughly 1/3. Also, Magneton is using Thunderbolt, which does a lot of damage to Crobat. In this case, it crits, and it one-shots. That was not what I expected. I came back into the fight, tried again. This time Thunderbolt doesn't get a critical hit, but it's still doing around half. Also, then it paralyzes Crobat, and that leads to another loss. So the Magneton is a lot worse than I was expecting. I knew what the solution was here though. If I just spam Return, I'm going to be able to knock it out in 3 hits, but he is going to use a Hyper Potion before that. I can buy time with Roost. Whenever I use this move, it takes away Crobat's flying type, which is not something represented with the overlay. This means Thunderbolt on some turns will only do neutral damage, which means every time I'm using Roost, Crobat is actually a little bit more defensively robust. Because of this interaction, I'm able to squeeze out a win against the Magneton, but I have half health left over for his next Pokemon, which is Bastiodon. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat things here. This thing is rough. It has Metal Burst, Stone Edge, Iron Defense, and Taunt. It's also level 41, so I'm only 15 levels higher than it. That seems like a huge advantage, but it's really not. Also, it's going to use Iron Defense, so I'm going to be relying on Air Slash here, and that move is doing pathetic damage. One major boon for Crobat here is the fact that Bastiodon's Stone Edge only has 5 PP, so it depletes this move very quickly, and all it has left to do damage is Metal Burst, which can't do much to Crobat, so this essentially becomes a stall fest. I have to use Air Slash for special damage to bypass Iron Defense. This is chipping away at the Bastiodon, and I was so worried that Rourke was just going to have a bunch of full heals or max potions or whatever and just heal it over and over again. But since he used one of them on Magneton, he only has 1 more remaining for the Bastiodon. Right after he uses it, he switches out for Steelix, and this foe turns out to be much easier for Crobat to deal with. I finish it very quickly due to a critical hit with Air Slash. Bastiodon comes back in, and then I started to get worried. Am I gonna run out of PP fighting this thing and have to spam out all of Cross Poison just to do damage with Struggle? Well, I have to resort to using Return, and luckily, this normal type move that does quarter damage has just enough oomph to give me the knockout against the Bastiodon. Crobat comes through with a win against Byron. Okay, Air Slash has served its purpose against all the steel types, so I'm gonna get rid of it and teach Fly in its place for more damage. I crush through Commander Saturn's team, as well as Commander Mars's, although she does give me a little bit more of a run for my money because Crobat goes down to orange health. Heading north towards Snowpoint City, I run into Ace Trainer Maria. This ends up being pretty sketchy. I'm taking chip damage from Hail every turn, and Sudowoodo has Rock Slide, which of course is super effective. I get brought to orange health by the time Rapidash comes out. I had my fingers crossed here that I was gonna one-shot, and luckily Fly has enough damage. Okay, Ace Trainer Dalton. This guy's been making a name for himself in my solo challenges because the Electabuzz is awful with static. Of course it paralyzes Crobat. Luckily, that doesn't hold me back against the Magmar. I make it into Snowpoint City and go up against Candace next. There's only one thing that I was really worried about during this fight, the Frostlass. It has Snow Cloak, it also has Double Team, and it has Psychic, making it quite the enemy for Crobat to face when my primary damage against it is going to be using Fly, a move with imperfect accuracy already. It also takes 2 turns to execute, so while I'm in the air, the Frostlass is going to have time to set up with Double Team. This causes me to miss 2 attacks, but the 3rd one hits and her ace faints. It's good the Abomasnow didn't come in first, triggering Snow Warning, and then have the Frostlass follow it up, but that's because Crobat's typing as a poison flying type, she was trying to hold back her grass type, which doesn't end up being a winning play. Finally, Piloswine is last, and I didn't want a chance missing here, so I just used Return to 2-shot. Okay, time for the Veilstone City Galactic Warehouse. I can pick up the Sludge Bomb TM here, but I don't think this move is actually that much better than Cross Poison. Interestingly enough, Crobat has base 90 attack, and Cross Poison's base power is 70, and if we reverse those two numbers, then we have the interaction of Sludge Bomb being a special move with Crobat's special attack. Sludge Bomb has 90 base power, and Crobat's special attack is 70. So these two moves are going to do roughly the same amount of damage if the target has the same defense and special defense. I don't want to open the inventory and teach a move if I don't think it's going to give me a critical edge. Right now I'll just hold on to Sludge Bomb, and if it needs special damage in the future, then I'll teach it in the place of Cross Poison. Cyrus 2. This battle is not much more difficult than the first one. I can one-shot the Sneasel, two-shot the Crobat. I should have used Return here. Fly is just a little bit inconsistent and it's putting me at risk. Plus he also uses a healing item, which he wouldn't have if I had just gone for Return twice. Honchcrow's last, and Return is able to take care of it in one critical hit. Okay, I have to do the multi-battle against Mars and Jupiter at the top of Mount Coronet. This one is unusually difficult for Crobat because their first two Pokemon are Bronzor. So I'm going to use the Ruthless strategy here and knock out Barry's Munchlax using Fly, hopefully avoiding hits from Bronzor along the way. Then when Munchlax faints, he's going to send in a more useful Pokemon, in this case Rapidash. Having a Fire type help me knock these Steel types out makes the whole battle so much easier. Cyrus in the Distortion world is next. This is notoriously one of the most difficult battles in Pokemon Platinum, but Crobat doesn't really struggle here. It just one-shots the Houndoom at the beginning of the battle, dodging a Will-O-Wisp, which is great. From there, I am able to one-hit the Weavile that's next, avoiding any Ice-type attacks. The Honchcrow doesn't go down to one hit, which is annoying. I get a better roll after he heals with a full restore, and then from there, even though Gyarados can intimidate Crobat, there's only two Pokemon left over. It ends in a mirror match of Crobat versus Crobat, but mine is just ridiculously over-leveled. And I even have a lot of rare candies left over in my bag, but I've been saving those for the late game. And I might actually need them right away, because Volkner is coming up next, and unlike in most challenges where he's a complete pushover, with Crobat he has the potential to be difficult. Here's the thing, using Return or Cross Poison, which deals similar amounts of damage, I'm not going to be able to one-shot his lead Jolteon, and it's prioritizing Thunder Wave, which makes Crobat slower than all of Byron's Pokemon, and it also impacts my consistency. Getting hit by electric moves on every turn is not good, even when I use Roost to try to heal, because then occasionally Paralysis will mess up my healing combos and Crobat gets knocked out. One loss to Volkner, and it's not just going to be one. I should have come back into the battle and just used a Cherry Berry. I thought maybe I could muscle my way through, but the answer is no. This is another loss. So I pressed A a little bit too fast and accidentally initiated the battle with Volkner again. This time, I one-hit the Jolteon because I get a critical hit with Return. That allows me to bypass Thunder Wave. Then I one-shot the Raichu, and I thought it was basically smooth sailing from there, but Luxray paralyzes me with its use of Thunder Fang. So when Electivire comes in, I'm forced to use Roost to heal up, I'm caught in a loop, and as a result, I take a third loss. This is getting embarrassing. Now, I have 10 rare candies. If I use them now, I'll go to level 76, but then potentially the late game might be more difficult if I need to level up more in order to beat the Elite Four. But I think I should be fine, so I'm going to use the 10 rare candies now to go all the way to 76 before trying Volkner again. This gives me an easy one-shot on the Jolteon without getting paralyzed. The whole fight is so much easier. I don't get bad luck this time on the Luxray, so without it paralyzing me, I move on to the Electivire in a good position. I almost one-shot, its Thunder Punch gets a critical hit, but Crobat pulls through and knocks it out on the second turn. Inside Victory Road, we have to talk about the first mandatory trainer. Normally, I make a joke here about how it's so long to knock out a Blissey in Generation 4, and yes, that is true, but it takes even longer for a Crobat to knock out a Magnezone. I get paralyzed really early on against it with Thunder Wave. Luckily, it's not doing that much damage with Discharge, and I have Roost, so I'm able to heal, and eventually scrape out a victory against it. Surprisingly, Luckily, it only took 3 turns to knock out because my Crobat is so ridiculously overleveled. This is what happens in Pokemon Platinum. By the way, there's some other battles in Victory Road that end up being a little bit sketchy. For example, Ace Trainer Omar, the Rampardos, does so much damage with Head Smash. In the next battle against Ace Trainer Sydney, I realized that the Clefable has the move Gravity. I have never played with this move before in my life, so it took a little while for me to realize that I am not allowed to use Fly after Gravity has been set up, which is really annoying because I have to knock out a Torterra. Luckily, it doesn't have Rock Slide, so it's not really a threat for Crobat. And that continues to remain true against this Empoleon at the end of Victory Road. One thing before I exit the cave, I'm gonna pick up the TM for Dark Pulse in case I need special damage late into the league. Before taking on the rival, I use my 3 remaining rare candies to boost Crobat up to level 82. I also teach Giga Drain in the place of Return, and I realized something here that I didn't know about Generation 4. This move now has 10 PP, so if I use 3 PP ups on it, its maximum number of uses is 16. By the way, this change occurred in Generation 4, which is why I was unaware of it until this moment. Okay, time for the rival. This one ends up being a little bit unlucky. I get paralyzed by the Snorlax using Body Slam, which is just frustrating. After that, I speed through the remainder of his team until the Empoleon, and then it's just doing too much damage and I'm not quite healing enough, plus I'm still paralyzed. So I do take 1 reset to the rival, but I come back in and without paralysis, I'm able to easily defeat him. Now it's time for the Elite Four. Aaron is really easy as you would expect. Fly one-shots Yanmega. The only Pokemon that survives 2 hits is the Drapion, which he sends in second. And yes, that means Crobat is able to one-shot the Scizor. Next is Bertha. This is a trainer that I was worried about because she has rock Pokemon with powerful rock-type moves. At least, that's what I was assuming. The Golem actually doesn't have any damage-dealing rock-type moves unless you consider Sandstorm a damage-dealing move, but I don't. It does have Thunder Punch, which is super effective and physical in Generation 4, however it's never going to get to use it because I have Giga Drain. I saved this move just to make this Pokemon easy to overcome, as well as the Rhyperior. It has Rock Wrecker, but it's so slow, it's never going to attack. So she only has really a Gliscor and a Hippowdon after that. Both of them are going to survive, but they're not going to be able to do enough damage. So Bertha ends up being very easy. And increasingly, as I have played more and more Pokemon Platinum, Flint has begun reminding me of a lost hiker from Generation 1. That's all I have to say about him today. Lucian is next. So there's one problem in this battle. Can you spot it? It's Bronzong. I hate this thing. It's gonna take multiple turns to knock out. It has Psychic, but it also has Calm Mind. That move alone is what's gonna make this absolutely brutal for Crobat. I am not able to 2-shot with Fly. I have to 3-shot, and it's doing enough damage that Lucian is going to heal with a full restore. Also, Fly can miss, and it does on the 3rd turn. Because of that, when Bronzong finally unleashes with Psychic, and it has +2 special attack, it just deletes Crobat. I thought that maybe Dark Pulse was gonna be the solution here, so I taught it in the place of Cross Poison, then tried the battle again. But now I can't one-shot the Mr. Mime because I was relying on Cross Poison to do that. And I also can't one-shot the Espeon. This whole battle just got more difficult using Dark Pulse. I think if I went back and did this again, I would have taught Dark Pulse in the place of Giga Drain since that move has served its purpose against Bertha. And I don't think I'm gonna need it against Cynthia. I already have a healing move in the form of Roost and it's far better. Here's the thing though, I just get lucky. I flinch the Bronzong not once, not twice, but 3 times in a row, and that allows Crobat to knock it out. So I polish off the Gallade with Fly and win against Lucian. I guess I'm gonna face Cynthia with this moveset. This battle did not go how I was expecting it to. Spiritomb is first and it's very defensive. I use Fly and Crobat is able to one-shot her lead. I guess this is what I've earned for myself after over-investing in training. Togekiss comes out next, and while it does have Shockwave, which is super effective, it's just not really super effective. Like, it can't do much damage is what I'm trying to say. I could heal as much as I want here with Roost. Although Cynthia switches out, sending in Lucario next and then Fly one-shots. Not sure why she did that. Togekiss comes back in, I use Roost a little bit while she uses a full restore. Then, when I'm near full health, I knock out the flying type and move on to Milotic, which Fly also one-shots. Okay, this is a Pokemon Platinum playthrough. So we over-leveled. The late game is going to be very easy because there are so many rare candies available, and that's exactly what happens. We 2-shot the final Garchomp and clock in with our final time. 2 hours, 41 minutes, and 15 seconds. With 13 faults, consisting of 12 resets and 1 blackout, I finished the game at level 85 with a game time of 8 hours and 27 minutes. Where does this earn Crobat a placement within the tier list? Well, it is to date the best poison type I have used in Pokemon Platinum, which actually surprises me because the flying type doesn't really seem like much of an asset, at least to me. In this case, it earns itself a placement at the top of the D tier, beating out both Toxicroak and Drapion, and of course, Skuntank, which is near the bottom of the tier list. It did not do well. The reason was because I made a terrible player error. You can see why if you check out the video. It's the whole reason I held on to Giga Drain for so long with Crobat. Coming up next in this series, I'm going to play Honchkrow. I'm really looking forward to that. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much. It means the world to me. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video.